right, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Papa Bear Show. I'm your host, Imani Lucas, with my co-host, Miss LaShanya Breeze Brazel. This show is brought to you by the community for the community. And at the time of this recording, it is currently Black History Month. So we are eager to get to the news. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, Black Fathers, Inc., the California Department of Health, Papa Bear's Village, and United and Guided, which is our community-based nonprofit organization. And I'll now pass it on to my co-host who will get us started.
Hello, everyone. My name is LaShanya Brazel, a.k.a. Shanya Breeze. What's up? Good evening. So starting off, we have an amazing story involving Sac State. According to an article written by Cynthia Hubert, a senior writer at Sac State University, Sac State is opening up an Black Honors College and accepting students this fall. Can you believe that? This will be the first Black Honors College in the nation. That's awesome. The university's president, Luke Wood, aims to increase the rate of Black students across student success with this Black Honors College. It is important to know that the college will not exclude anyone and plans to focus on teaching a curriculum relating to the Black experience for any race and culture.
There we go.
That is the first in history.
That's right.
First in history.
So first of all, big shout outs to Brother Luke Wood, young Black man who is the head of Sac State, running that now as the president. Congratulations to you. And I believe he's under 40 years old.
He is. I think he's right at 40.
Right.
Yeah,
So
right
just
at 40.
bringing new innovation and things to Sac State. In the article that we looked at, it said that Sac State recruits the most Black students out of any other of the CSUs. Okay. So big up to Sac State, Brother Luke Wood. And
awesome.
Moving forward, what's our next story?
All right, let's get into it.
Well, America promised Africans a lot of things after slavery. That never followed through. However, this Sacramento conservation group plans to meet a promise that was forgotten for over 150 years. The 40-Acre Conservation League are a Black-led nonprofit that have closed the deal for 650 acres of land of Sierra Nevada land. 40-Acre League is now, they have control of Placer County's Emigrant Gap area. The deal was finalized in February 15th, so make sure you read acres and mule on their website, 40acreleague.org. So that's a very interesting article as well. There are people that have been driving forward to continue to acquire land or regain land that their family have once lost. So, whenever that's happening, we want to celebrate that and acknowledge that type of stuff.
Well, while we're on the topic of land, we need to start taking back the land that we have already owned. A slate of reparations bill was introduced by California lawmakers that offers the restoration of stolen property based on race. This legislative package contains 14 bills along with restoring properties. These bills aim to fix human rights violations, fund red line communities, handle issues with criminal justice, and much more. While these bills will offer some monetary leisure, none of them involve direct financial compensation. So no ching-ching there. Some of y'all are probably not smiling as hard as before. State Assembly member Lori Wilson, who chairs the Black Caucus, stated that while many of only associate direct cash payments with reparations, the true meaning of the word is to repair. It involves much, much more. So that's a little bit of education about what reparations mean. It doesn't mean cash payments. Doesn't mean like call JG, we're going to get some cash. No, it's going back in history, repairing a lot of wrongdoing to the African American families.
That's right. And so, that is going to be our topic for today. We have a man who is a part of a two-man team to bring back reparations for us and really try to restore their family land and bring back their tradition and make sure that is preserved and they have their natural historical piece in our society, and it's kept there and it's not erased, which has been done in the past. So we look forward to meeting our guest, Matthew Burgess, and in the next segment, he's going to talk a little bit about that history and reparations in general.
So stay tuned. Good history coming up.
All right, welcome back. We're here at the Papa Bear Show. I'm Imani Lucas. I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Miss LaShanya Breeze Brazel.
Hey.
And, you know, we are here to talk about reparations. Since it's Black History Month, we really want to learn a little bit more about the history of how the powers that be were able to acquire and, let's say, maybe seize land and then all of a sudden act like that never happened, erasing some really rich history that should be on the books that is being overlooked. We have Mr. Matthew Burgess, who is from a famous family here in Sacramento and in the Sacramento area, but is more well known for being one of the two Burgess brothers who sell several products, including the waffle maker and barbecue sauce. And, you know, these guys have been in business for years, but, you know, more importantly, they come from a long tradition of business owners and land and property owners. So I'm just real happy that you came and shared your story with us. Thank you for being here, Matt. And, you know, if you could just start by just talking a little bit about the history and then maybe segue into the book your brother wrote, which I see you have on the table.
Good to have you, sir. Good
to
have you, brother.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to thank you both for just having me on the show. It's an honor to be here, and as we close out Black History Month, I couldn't think of a better place to be than being here with you guys to share a little bit of our story and our history. I mean, looking at our family, we go back from when before California was even part of the Union. You know, fortunately enough, we know our history, and our ancestors left autobiographies, documents. But our great-grandfather, he came to California in 1849, 1850 as a slave, which a lot of people didn't realize that California had slaves, even after it became a union. And so what happened was, it was a big migration because of the gold. It was a gold rush. And so that brought all the people to California from everywhere, all over. And you know, our great-grandfather happened to be enslaved at the time, and he came to work the gold mines, which he ended up working in the gold mines to purchase his freedom. Not only did he purchase his freedom once, but he was sold in California when we were supposed to be a free state, to then regain his freedom again. And so really, James Marshall Discovery Park, which is in the town of Coloma, where gold was discovered, that's where our ancestors settled at. That's where they came to. They settled here in 1850. And fortunately, there was some information that was the park told, but they just didn't tell all the history.
Right.
And if you notice, we always hear about James Marshall. We always hear about the white pioneers, but there wasn't really a whole lot about the Black pioneers. And, you know, our mother and father had talked about it, and we would always go up to Coloma, and there would be just this picture of maybe one Black person. We could always point out our great-grandfather and say, hey, that was him. But then they started to lose some of the history, or misrepresent the history. But they never came to our family to talk about it, to get it right.
Right.
Of course. And so it caused us to really look into some things a little bit deeper. And my mother always said that we owned a church in the town of Coloma.
Okay.
And after my mom had passed away, because she kept copious notes, she interviewed my grandfather, interviewed my uncles to get information so that it could be passed down and shared. And she always said that, you know, you guys are going to miss me when I'm gone, but you'll appreciate what I'm writing down. And so really, she wrote down a plethora of information. We've always had pictures and Bibles in the family that go back to over 150 years, where our ancestor left an autobiography. And he wrote down every slave owner he ever had,
Right.
even until he's brought to California. Ultimately, what inspired my brother to write the book is that we always looked at history and saying, you know what, we have to start telling our own stories. Because in American history, they don't cover our history often.
Correct.
And the autobiography, no one had it. They didn't know about it. The deeds that we had, no one knew about it. They weren't published anywhere. And so really what inspired him to write the book was to tell the history, but also show that Black pioneers were here during the Gold Rush. We helped to actually build California. We were involved in the agriculture of California. And so we built up this state as well. And so that really inspired him to write the book and get it inside schools so that we can start educating our children.
Right.
So they can be proud and go up to the state park and see the people that look like them and know that we were here then, opposed that we're just laborers or we were insignificant.
Right. So let me ask you a question. I noticed we were going through the book a little bit earlier, and I seen some beautiful pictures of deeds and other documentation. Where did you guys come across? Because I know you said that grandmother kept information. Did she have those documentations with the information, or did you guys have to do some research and find those documentations?
So it's interesting that you asked that question, and thanks for asking. Often the patriarchs, patriarch, but the matriarchs of the family would often keep a Bible. And so a lot of the important documentation were kept in a Bible. And so my mom had the deeds as well as the Bible that had been in the family, and it was all kept in the Bible.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
it's
so
smart.
even on the outside of the envelope, it said hold. And these are deeds that date back to 1800s.
Long time ago.
When they were giving out hundreds of acres,
Right.
right, just to come and build up the land. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, like, what is the process that one goes through to prove that all this documentation is legal and has historical value? How do you go to the powers that be and explain that this land has been taken away and this history?
Well, that's a good question, and really it's a question that you come against opposition. But when you have the documentation and it hits you square in the face, it's hard to fight against that. Really looking at it and saying, hey, these maps don't line up. How come our ancestors aren't listed on the map? We can find them on the census documents, right, from 1850, but they're not listed on the map as property owners. And so when you start building up the park and you don't put us on maps, where were we? Because we know we're here. But we have this deed that was issued by a Supreme Court justice, one of California's first. So we know it's authentic. And so when you have that type of documentation, you kind of know what happened. And you just had some people that were in power that were selfish. And unfortunately, things worked against us because, let's face it, we were less than a person. That's how we were looked at. We were looked at as property. We weren't supposed to have property because we were listed as property. And so when people could come in and take advantage of that, they did. We didn't have rights back then. We didn't have civil rights.
Of course.
That didn't come until, the 60s?
Yes.
And
Late 60s.
late 60s at that, right? So people ask, how did it happen? It's pretty easy. You might have a deed that's issued by a Supreme Court justice, but when that person dies off and you have the bad elements that come in, what happens?
No longer valid.
Right?
It is no longer valid.
And when you know that you were formerly enslaved, how much rights do you really have? And how loud are you going to fight?
Correct.
Right? When you know that you want to keep your family safe and yourself.
Absolutely. Now I know you guys are in the process of getting all your stuff back. You're getting your land back. I know you guys are in that process. Do you feel like it's a battle that's coming to a victory, or do you feel like there's still so much that's in between that, just too many fires and we don't know where to start or how to put them out, or do you guys feel like you have a handle on it?
This is something that's been going for, I look back and it's been almost 5 years now, right? When we started this journey. And we've gotten to a point to where now at least our family is mentioned in the Reparations Task Force report, because my brother and I actually went down and testified and made sure they are aware of our family, our history. Good. And understand the wrongs that were done right here in California. And part of that is education. A lot of people are not educated and they don't know. And so I'm thankful that the Reparations Task Force was able to put together a 1,100-page document highlighting some of the atrocities that took place.
Good. That's progress.
It is progress,
Yes,
right?
it is, yes.
So, how long would you say you've been working with the Reparations Task Force? And for some of our viewers who may not be familiar, what do they do and how have they helped you guys?
Right. Well, the Reparations Task Force really came into because of all the injustices that have occurred, right? And also it was to help educate Californians and those abroad and beyond as to what happened and how come we can look at our people and see that we don't own manufacturing plants.
Right. No.
We don't own land dating back to the 1800s when there was hundreds of acres.
Correct.
Right? Now, my great-grandfather was here with Mr. Strauss, actually before Levi Strauss.
Okay. Wow.
Mr. Levi has a stadium named after him, right? And I know we farmed fruit and everything else, but we don't have manufacturing plants. Yeah. And so really giving the Reparations Task Force that information so that they could move it forward and look at how do we, apologize as a nation, as California, for the wrongs that were done, but also how do we make it right as far as the repair? How do we repair it? And so there's restitution, there's reparation, and for us it was about the property that was taken unjustly, eminent domain.
Right.
And I don't know if our viewers know what eminent domain is, but really it's where the government can come in and take your land.
Right.
So like you have a house, and they're gonna come in and say, you know what? Well, we're gonna actually take this block of land, right? And that land, majority of the times, belong to black folks.
Yeah. So wait a minute. Eminent domain, they can actually legally take someone's land. I've heard that normally if they declare it a historical landmark or they declare it some sovereign land, they can just declare that land. And sometimes they'll make an offer to buy that person out who's actually occupying that land. But a lot of the time it's just a legal way of seizing it.
Correct. Ultimately, it's a legal way that the government has used for years, and I think one of our family is one of the first cases, I believe, because of how long we had the land on the family, where they came in and decided that, hey, we're going to take your land, and we're going to give you. They're supposed to give you just compensation for the land, but let's just think about that, right? So let's say we had this land since 1870, right? And you got hundreds of acres of land, right? And we all know that land is wealth because now you can leverage that land, right, to go get a loan to start another business if you have the land. If you don't have the land, you can't do that. And ironically enough, a lot of the white families that came there even after our family, they're still in that private park that was taken from eminent domain.
Generational wealth for them.
And who was it taken from? The black families that were there. And people ask, well, what happened to the black families? Well, it's no surprise what happened. Let's just look at what eminent domain was. And so really giving that information to the Reparations Task Force so they could see it. But not only did it happen here in California, it happened across the nation. And there's other stories that where it's happened. I'm sure a lot of reviews heard about Bruce's Beach. That was another example of eminent domain, right? And then there's a new one that's in the news today, which is Santa Monica. Another African American gentleman who had bought a beach club and wanted to build a hotel, a place for black folks there. And the county, local government came in and took it. And what did they do? They let it sit vacant and they put a hotel there. And so now you have people that are saying, hey, this is our land, we want it back. And so the Reparation Task Force has actually looked at that to introduce a bill specifically as one of the repairs, not all of them, as one of the repairs to return land that was unjustly taken to the rightful owners.
Brother Matt, listen, your brother John wrote was quoted in the Cal Matters article, and I'm going to read what he said. It says, Burgess said, many of the wrongs committed against black people and their families can never be fully quantified with any dollar amount. But returning property is one of the most important measures because it correlates to what would have been generational wealth. And then he also says it's really about writing history and showing our nation the path forward. He said, this is just the beginning, and I like to hope. So again, with that being said, your family come from generational wealth. Do you feel like that quote is on, and could you give some more insight about it? And you have proof, you guys have proof that you had generational wealth that was taken from you.
Yes, that quote is spot on, and I'll tell you why. One is you can never repay black folks for all the harm, the atrocities, and it's hurtful.
Correct.
You know, our parents didn't talk about some of those things that happened because it was too much pain.
Right.
And then when you come in knowing their condition, where they came from as former slaves, and serve this country as well, right? And so when we go down the lineage, great-grandfather coming as a slave, only to be sold back into slavery here in California, right? And finding gold, but then they take the gold mine from them.
Right.
Okay. And then building up agriculture, farming, right? But then they come and strip that away from future generations because they take the land by eminent domain. And then they move them off maps. And so when he talks about that generational wealth that you can't replace, but we look at our counterparts, our white brothers and sisters that were here, and some of the immigrants that came during the same time, and they still have their land, and they're able to parlay that land to create manufacturing or trucking companies, or just stay in the land. They're still there. So yeah, you'll never repay us for what was taken. But are we in the right direction?
Correct.
Absolutely. Give us the land back.
That's it.
And it's not even giving us the land back. It was rightfully ours. So make sure there's restitution with it.
They're right.
Right? And so when the government can come in and take your land and give you what they want to give you for it, you don't have the opportunity to build from it.
Right.
They prematurely take something from you, right? Before it reaches its fullest growth.
Right. And let's take it a step forward. Not only the land, how about this? Give us our history back. Tell the true story. Go back to history. Put us where we belong, on the deeds, in the parks, on street side. I don't care. Give us back history, which all contributes to the generational wealth.
Correct. If they told history right, we wouldn't only have 1 month.
Right, we
with
wouldn't
29
have
days
exactly.
in it. Okay? And so that's why we wrote the book. And
Good.
that's why we included original deeds in that book. But also we included, I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up, we included the good white folks that were abolitionists and that were actually doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Because people need to see that. Right?
Sure.
They actually issued deeds.
Of course.
Right, to my family.
Right.
Because it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so that's in the book, and I'm proud of it.
Right. And that goes back to that education, because like you said, not everybody knows. But I believe that once you know, I had asked you earlier, what will they do with that? Is what you do once you find out with that information, once you find out history. What do you
Correct.
do?
And it's I think it's imperative that once you have that information, you start to educate others.
You do.
You have to.
You have to.
You can't just sit there and remain silent when you have it, because as you know, in our culture, it speaks to our bones.
Sure does.
So we can't just hold it.
Absolutely.
Someone tell somebody.
Yeah. And we're going to agree, before we end, we're going to agree on this one thing. We are not putting it on the ballot, right? We don't want nothing on Talk about it. Speak on it.
Here's the thing, right? A whole lot of things ain't been placed in the ballot.
Right.
So listen, this is beyond the. This is just beyond state government.
It is.
Right.
It
so
is.
we need, again, the president. Go and
Sign
write it
it.
in, sign it, whatever you need
That's
to do.
all you got to do.
Here's his case study. It's
Yes.
true. We know what happened.
There you go.
Y'all know what happened.
We do know.
Sign it and issue the checks.
That's all
we
you
never
need
got
to
that
do.
40 acres of
You
mule.
would think it would be that simple, right?
Well,
Right? So, yo, folks, if you're listening out
Yes.
there, go on, acknowledge it, apologize to these people, and give them back their land and their property and their historical name. So just thank you, Matthew,
Yes,
for being a
absolutely.
part and sharing this with us, because there's still several people that are learning, and even more that don't even understand what reparations are, or eminent domain, or some of those things that are really important.
Exactly.
Right. And they don't understand the why.
They
I
don't
think the
understand the
biggest
why.
thing is understanding the why. And once they understand the why, then they can get past the rest of it.
Yes.
But it's our job to help them understand the why.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes. So you have to wrap it up now, Matt, and I know there's so much more that we want to learn about reparations, but it is a key issue in our political environment right now. California is the first state to actually take reparations seriously and pass bills. There have been several bills that are on the table right now, addressing some of the issues that Matthew mentioned, and then some of the other issues about people who had their land seized at one point or another. So just happy about the work that's going on there. And for our audience, as we wrap up, Matt, do you got anybody you want to shout out, or anybody you want to give your props to?
Yeah, I do. My brother Jonathan, who actually co-authored this book with, I have to give a shout out because he's not here, right? And so this Gold Rush Descendant book of Burgess's, it's something that every household should have, and so I give a shout out to him specifically.
Right on.
So go get the book, people, and read it.
You can find it on Amazon.
Right on. All right. All right. So, hey, thank you for watching another episode of the Papa Bear Show. I'm Imani Lucas. We had Matthew Burgess here, and of course, the lovely, lovely Miss LaShanya Breeze Brazel. And we are out for today, but we'll see you next month. Peace.